open up the file called stretch.tiff. This is a photograph that was taken down south by Josh Kernell. And let me just quickly show you a finished version of this one here. So this is kind of the version that was sent to the client. So here's the original image as it came out of the camera, and here's the image as it ran in the magazine. So there was a little bit of work on the pants. You can see there was some wrinkles around there, so just a little bit of softening up of the wrinkles. A little bit of a color correction. It had a bit of a coolish sort of cast, so we put a little bit of warmth into it there. Not a lot needed on the clothes itself. You can see the elbow was a bit pointy. There's the original elbow, quite a pointy elbow. There's the D-point. I actually have a layer here called D-pointy's elbow because the elbow was quite pointy. The retouching was fairly minimal. You can see around the face there were some lines around the mouth, around the nose, some of the little flyaway hairs up above. Oftentimes you'll find that models have ears pierced, but they have no earrings in them, so just fill in those little holes. And there was a gap in the back of the hair, so I just grabbed some hair from down below, did some cloning, and extended it out to fill that up. Some of the flyaways on top kind of got hacked down. There's the color correction. And the highlights in the clouds, I went back to the raw file, processed it out again a second time, just like we did with the guy in the jungle there, and brought back a different version that had those highlights in there. And I just used a layer mask to reveal it only in those areas. And on the actual image, you can see more of that detail coming back in the highlights there. But the thing I want to show is this stretching of the background. Here's before and here's after. And you probably wouldn't notice that these rocks had been stretched or that these clouds had been stretched. This is a pretty straightforward way of kind of correcting the aspect ratio. And let's get you guys to play around with that. So open up the image called stretch.tiff. And let's take a look at the process of taking that side and extending it outwards a little bit. Well, the first thing, I guess, would be to duplicate the background layer. It's not necessary. Like, ultimately, we're going to need a duplicate of the background. Whether we do it now or after we do the canvas extension doesn't really matter. But if we duplicate it now, the top layer will have transparency around it instead of a white background. So what's the keyboard shortcut to duplicate that background layer? Command J will make that a duplicate. You could also right-click and duplicate layer, or you can grab it and drag it down onto the new layer icon. However you do it, let's get a duplicate in there. Now the client has said that they need this to be 11 inches wide, and let's take a look at how wide it is right now. Image size, it's 9.7 inches. Now if I tried to make this 11 inches wide just using image size, as we saw, she'd get stretched out horizontally, so that's not going to work. If I constrain the aspect ratio and I make it 11 inches wide, she becomes 16.5 inches high. So clearly the image size isn't going to work. But what if I did canvas size? And then I set it to inches, and they want it to be 11 inches wide. Now this will work, oddly enough, and when I hit OK, we'll see why. It doesn't have to stretch her horizontally, it just puts some white bands down either side. And if you have yours set to do black, you'll see some black bands. Doesn't matter, we're going to be covering them up anyway. What if I just grabbed this section over here, took a marquee tool, started, not trying to find a corner, but like somewhere out here, and went click and drag to select this bit, and then just did stretched it out. Let's give that a try. Just follow along on the screen for a second, and let me show you what I'm doing as I do it. I'm going to grab my marquee tool. There she be, rectangular marquee, and make sure it has no feather radius, 0 on the feather. You don't want any softness on this selection. And I'll do a click, and I'm not going to try to find the exact corner because, oh look, I missed it by a few pixels. Start somewhere outside of the image. Click. It won't start making the selection until you pass into the image, but at least you know, at least you know that you've got that entire top corner there. And how much of this do I take? If I just do a little bit, let's say I just took this little bit here and I did that scale, well, it'll be pretty obvious that that's been distorted. Like, first off, you can see that kind of smearing effect happening on the rocks, but even the noise in the image, that kind of grain structure, you can see that kind of smearing effect on the side. Here you can see the noise, here you can see that noise getting stretched. So you'll probably want to take as much of it as you can. So maybe I'll start here and I'll go all the way up until I almost touch her. Or even, to do less of a percentage stretch, I'll grab a little bit of her elbow. What the heck? Let's go that much of it there. So I've grabbed that right side, and I'm just going to scale it outwards. I could go under Edit, Transform, Scale, or I could do free transform. And of course, the keyboard shortcut for free transform is Command T. So if I do a Command T, there's that little side. And depending on which version of Photoshop you've got, if you have an older version of Photoshop, you can just grab this side and start pulling. If you have a newer version of Photoshop, if you grab that side and start pulling, you might notice that it constrains the aspect ratio. So as the width increases, so too does the height. To break that constraint, just hold the Shift key, and that will let you stretch it outwards without making it higher. And when you hit the check mark, there's that transformation. A quick Command D gets rid of the marching ants. And there's before, and there's after. Any problems that you noticed there? Like, remember she had a bizarrely pointy elbow? Oh crap, that's gotten even worse. What do you think we could do about that? What if I just put a layer mask on here? Like, when I turn the layer off, I can see the original not stretched but still strangely pointy elbow. When I turn it back on, that stretched version covers it. What if I gave it a layer mask and with a paintbrush and some black paint, just painted that right over top? That reveals the original unstretched version down below. Same thing for the bottom of the shirt here. Got stretched out, just paint some black over top of it. And now if I do a before and after, that looks pretty good. Want me to run over that again? Okay, I'll run through the whole thing again. I'm going to revert this. File, revert. This is as it was when it was first opened. I'm going to duplicate the layer and stretch the canvas. So I'm going to make this canvas 11 inches wide. Then I'm just going to grab my marquee tool, or M on the keyboard, select the entire right side, as much of it as I possibly can, and then a Command T to call up my free transform. And I have the newest version of Photoshop, so I have to hold the Shift key so I don't accidentally distort it. And when I hit return, there it is. Now, I'm done with this selection. Whenever you have marching ants, always get rid of them. So either select, deselect, or the keyboard shortcut, Command D, and away that goes. Then I can give her a layer mask. At the bottom of the layers panel, there's that little white rectangle with the gray circle in the middle of it. You click on that, a white layer mask, or a reveal all layer mask appears. And then with a paintbrush, and here's the important part when you're painting on a layer mask. Make sure you have pure black and pure white. What's the keyboard shortcut for that? To get your default colors? D on the keyboard gets you your default colors. And if it gives you the wrong one, like in this case it gave me white, I can hit X, and that switches it around to black. And make sure you're at 100% opacity. How can I get that from the keyboard really quickly? Zzz, zzz. 0 on the keyboard gives you 100% opacity. And we can just paint those problem areas out. Basically what we've done is we've put a big honking hole in the middle of the top image. Basically we've hidden it with the layer mask, so we're seeing through the original unaffected version. And for the most part, it works pretty good on this side over here. There's a slight bit of duplication on the cloud back here. I could, with this layer mask, kind of hide a little bit more, and I think that probably covers it. But on the right side, it doesn't make that much of a problem. It's OK. But the left side, give it a try on the left side as well. Grab that marquee, grab the left side, and again, as much as you can. Like if I get a little bit of her bracelet, a little bit of the shirt there, I'm not going to be overly concerned about it. And then a Command T, and I will stretch. Oh, did I make a horrible mistake? Look at this. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to, hey, it's not moving at all. Why is it not moving at all? What do I actually have selected in my layers panel? I got the layer mask selected. This is a trap that you'll fall into a bunch of times. See these little 4 white corner points? That tells me that I have the layer mask selected. And oftentimes people come to a layer, they click here and think, now I'm going to paint some black to hide. And they start painting black all over something. And they're actually just painting black all over their layer. Even worse, if you're going the other route and you'd hidden it, you don't see that you're painting all over it. So always check to see where you have your little corner points. So I'm actually going to escape out of this transformation, and I'm going to select the layer itself, and then Command T, and I will stretch that out with my Shift key held down. And if I turn this layer off and on, overall it's pretty good. The only problems I see are her shirt, which that I probably wouldn't even bother with. Actually, it looks a little bit better. That's kind of puffed out a little bit. Her bracelet got a little bit of a distortion. That maybe I'll fix. And her bag looks like she's smuggling human heads. So I should probably deal with that. Now I'm going to grab the layer mask. Notice I clicked on the layer mask to put those little points around it. Grab my paintbrush, and I'll just paint some black over the bracelet. There we go. There's the bracelet fixed. I'll paint some black over her purse. Looks pretty good there. Luckily that water line was horizontal, so it matched up pretty good. Pretty good over here. Uh-oh, look at what's happening along here. I'm starting to get some duplication. These are obviously the same thing. There's a couple ways we could deal with this. I could just try hiding some more. I could just keep hiding and hiding until, oh, that seems to blend in pretty good. I could try just hiding and hiding until, that looks like it might never blend in. So what I could try doing is take a clone stamp on a new transparent layer. And then I could just say, okay, well, I'm seeing some duplication here, so I'll just grab maybe a bit of this, and I'll throw it over top of that. Maybe I'll grab a little bit of this, and I'll push it up into here. You can just kind of rebuild that edge. And there's a before, and there's the, ooh, look what I missed over here. The seam of the bag. Go back to the paintbrush on the layer mask and some black paint, and I can hide that away. There's before, and there's after. So hopefully that's something that you could send to the client. It's got the right aspect ratio, and nobody would notice that that stretching had occurred. Now, where could a problem occur? Like, let's say you had a photograph that there was a car in the background, parked sideways, and the wheel was a circle, and then you stretched it into an oval. That would probably be a giveaway that something had gone wrong. Sometimes the only option is to actually go in with the clone stamp. Like if I had started from here, took my clone stamp, and I'll just make a new transparent layer there. I could, as long as I respect the gradient, I could sample a little bit of this, and I could just clone that out into the background. Now the problem comes with these gradients. Like notice how it's fairly bright down here, and then it goes to fairly dark up there. So if I said, well, let me just grab a little bit of this, and I'll just throw that on the outside, that's not entirely convincing because of the difference in brightness. Even if I started a little bit closer from here out to there, it's still a little bit brighter. You gotta watch for those gradients, and it looks like the gradient is going this way, so I would probably have to clone this way, 90 degrees to it. So from here, I could clone downwards and out, and I could probably start to rebuild that. It would get a little bit tougher when I got to things like these clouds down here. Maybe I could grab a little bit of this and push it out. It's a whole lot more work than just stretching, but if there's stuff that is obviously distorted in the image, sometimes cloning is gonna be your only option.